Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. I welcome you all to the second class of this 6-class series. I hope you were there the first time yesterday, and if you were not there, you can always look at the stored TV, and it'll be good to follow a sequence, but it's okay if you cannot do that. It's okay too. So let us start the second class today, and with a prayer, and also that mantra that I was not able to play yesterday. We will do both of them, and then we'll begin the class. Thank you. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Now the mantra that Sri Omkarananda had sent to us. This is a Vedic mantra which is supposed to annihilate germs, including viruses. So we will play that, which is appropriate for this coronavirus. Harihi Om Atrina Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Atrinatva Krime Hanmi Kanvena Jamadagnina Vishwavasor Brahmana Hataha Kriminagum Raja Apyeshagsthapatir Hataha Atho Mata Atho Pita Atho Sthura Atho Kshudra Atho Krishna Atho Shveta Atho Ashatika Hataha Shvetabhis saha sarve hataha aharavadya shrutasya havisho yatha tat satyam yadamum yamasya jambhayoh adadhami tatha hi tat khandhanmrasi. Harihi Om. So we begin the class today, but before we begin the class, I would like to introduce my wife Pammi, P-A-M-M-I. This is a very special day for us. This is her birthday, and the reason that I would like to introduce her is because of her sacrifices that have made my teaching possible. So let me ask Pammi to come and join me for a few minutes. So she's a very special person, obviously, to me. We have been married for 50 years. I won't tell you how young she is today on her birthday. But today's sacrifice also was interesting because we gave up having to celebrate that with our family because I had a class today. And this is very traditional, very familiar to me. I would like to just briefly tell you about how my deep study with Swami Dayanandji began, because I was a product marketing manager with Hewlett Packard. We had two kids, 10 and 4? Mm-hmm. And everything was going well. And then I just had this urge to really study in depth with Swamiji at the ashram. And it was really because of her she agreed, despite the objections from my parents. And I'm really indebted to her. So we all moved in. She also studied with me at the Piercy ashram for 2.5 years. And I think even more than that, She has sacrificed her social life to a great degree because of my teaching schedule, and I'm very, very indebted to her. So I would like Pami to say a few words before we begin the class.
Thank you, everybody. I know that, people say, oh my gosh, you went to the ashram with him for 2 years. And I look back, and even back then, of course, I said, oh, he's been a, great father and a great husband. Why wouldn't I do that? And this is something, it was wonderful to study with Swamiji. But the best thing was that I thoroughly enjoyed those 2 years. And honestly, I look back, and those were the two best years of our lives. The family was together, and we were with all the people and studying together. It really was absolutely great times. And I know right now these are not the best times. You guys are all going through, everybody's going through hard times. We're all in the same boat. But some of you, especially with young children, it must be very, very hard right now. So please take extra precautions, stay healthy, be safe, and thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in. Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Pami. Thank you so much. Okay, so let us begin. In fact, let me turn the audio on. Okay, so what we saw yesterday in this book called, I forgot to show it to you yesterday, this is the book called Vyaktitva Ka Vikas by Swami Maheshananji. And in this book, he has focused on the means to gain complete independence as a human being. So if you look at the entire creation of Ishvara, the various species of living beings, we don't know how many there are, but they are in millions. They're in millions. Animals, plants, and so on, and devas. Out of the entire millions of species, there is one species, which is the human species, which is capable and qualified to gain complete independence in this life itself. This is what the Vedas point out. This is a very special situation that we have find ourselves in. Sooner or later that will happen. It may not happen in this life, it may have to be in next life, but the potential of fulfillment of complete, independent, unencumbered independence is there. So in this book, Swamiji has mentioned how do we develop our life, our personality, so that we can achieve this potential fulfillment in this life. This is the subject. And here, Vedanta is not the center. Of course, it is always there in the background, but it is really the conduct of our lives, and particularly not only our individual life, but also family life, and the life of working with the society and the nation, which is the subject of this book. So I thought in this short time we would adopt this as our study. So this is what we are doing. So what we did yesterday was Swamiji introduces the two words that form the title of the book, Vyaktitva and Vikas. So we went through this yesterday as a revision. Vyaktitva was, what is a human being's nature? And how do we express it outside? How do we express it, period, outside or inside? How do we describe it? How does it manifest itself? As a manifestation of the humanness is what is called Vyaktitva. Okay. Then the second word is Vikasa. And Vikasa really means, as we saw yesterday, a full bloom. So full bloom means the fulfillment of the readiness for moksha. This is really our potential. None of the other species have this. The animals don't have it. The plant kingdom doesn't have it. The insects don't have it. Really, the human being is the only one, because of our history, our qualification, that has this qualification, that has this potential. And the question is, what does full bloom mean? And how does the humanness blooms itself, or you can say in the case of human beings, you can say blooming in the case of flowers and so on and so forth, but how does it get developed? This is what we said yesterday. Okay, so let us start with that. Let me bring my notes here. So we saw that to express one's innate nature is Vyaktitvam. So as an example, as we saw yesterday, the innate nature of a rose plant is the beautiful blooming of the rose flower. This is the, if you want to call it, Vyaktitvam of a rose plant. We also took the example of a pea, P-E-A, and peas, and a pod. And so this can be applied to any of the species. You take a banana, for instance. What is a full bloom for a banana? There is a particular reason why the banana is, and for the way it tastes, the way it fulfills our hunger. What is a full bloom? So that is the reason for the vikasa. In a similar way, what is the Vyaktitvam of the human being, and what is the vikasa of the human being? This is what we have to see. So in this second chapter that we begin today, what we are going to do is to look at the process by which the Vyaktitvam, the inner nature of the human being, expresses itself. The process by which it expresses itself is called Vyaktitvam. Let me turn this thing off so that it doesn't interrupt me. This is what we have to study today. And then after we complete this today, we will show the process of vikasa. So today it is more on, it has both, but the main emphasis will be on Vyaktitva. And from tomorrow on it will be on vikasa. So let's start on that. So what is said is that the human being has an innate nature, an innate light, which is common to all species, which is called consciousness, which is the very nature of Ishvara. This is our inner nature, inner light. And what we have to see is, how does this consciousness manifest itself, and how does this manifestation go through the stages? So let us start on that process. So the first thing that this I-ness, the light of consciousness expresses itself, is I-ness. I, the I thought. And here Swamiji says that we may have doubts about consciousness of other things, but we do not have any doubt about my consciousness. No one can reasonably go to a doctor. You can talk about any of the other subjects. Do I have this disease? How do I do this? Etc., etc. But no one goes to a doctor and said, "Doctor, am I alive or not?" That's stupid. That's not possible. Here Swamiji says, the fact that you are saying it, that means you are alive. Here Swamiji points out that suppose you meet someone at a social get-together, and there is a question that happens. I do not believe in God. I do not believe in Ishvara. So Swamiji's advice is, do not pick up a quarrel. Do not pick up an argument where they say, "I don't believe in it," you say, "I believe in it," and then you agree to disagree. This is not proper. Then what is proper? What is proper is, ask someone who is saying, "I don't believe in God," which God don't you believe in? What is the lakshana? What is the description of the God that you don't believe in? So this is the right question to ask as you are discussing this with someone. Why? Why is this the right question? Let's look into that. Okay. So now, the question of belief and not belief does not arise, has no value, unless the person knows something. And when you know something, then there is no need for a belief anyway. But let's step back a little bit. To say that I don't believe in God means that the person doesn't know. So suppose you go to a doctor with an illness, which actually happened to me recently, and she told me, "Mr. Kapoor, I'm sorry to tell you, you have pneumonia." This actually happened, and this is the same example that Swami Mahesharanji is giving. So if the doctor tells you you have pneumonia, and the doctor is a valid doctor, in the sense that you've already qualified that he or she knows what she's talking about, then there's no question of a belief. You just either go through the treatment or you don't. But suppose there is a person that has no knowledge of medical science. No knowledge of medical science. And tells you, "I believe you have pneumonia." Then how much value should I give to that person? Nothing. So knowledge is very important for you to, as a prelude even to, so the belief really doesn't mean anything at all. In the study of the Shastras, as you know, there is a variation of belief which is called Shraddha. And that is a different thing altogether, because what Shraddha means, that I understand what you're telling me to a point, but I don't get it. I don't have any reasons to disbelieve you, like scientific examples. E is equal to mc square, which is one of my favorite examples. When a high school student is told E is equal to mc square, which means that energy and mass are equivalent to each other. Energy can either become as a mass or the mass can become an energy, and they are equal. Doesn't quite understand how is that possible. But he continues to study. This is called Shraddha. But if someone says, I don't believe in God without any basis, it really doesn't mean anything. Swami gives an example. He says, and I think many of us can relate to that, at least from an Indian standpoint, although this is true for everywhere. In India, what used to happen would be that a young set of parents would take their child to the doctor and say, doctor, he's very sick, he's got fever, he's got cold, this, that, or the other. And the doctor will say, okay, take this medicine. And by the way, do not feed anything to this youngster for 48 hours, except for some soup or broth, so that's easy to digest, but don't give him any solid foods or anything. So the parents bring the child back. There is a grandmother sitting in the home who loves this child. And the child says to the grandmother, Grandma, I cannot eat anything for two days. So grandma says, who says that? He says, my parents found out from the doctor. He says, what do the doctors know? Do not tell this to your parents. So she feeds him or her some puris, pakoras, all fried. And she says, don't believe in that. Why? Because she does not know medical science. So similarly, and this is true for us also, really speaking, we cannot question our own belief system because we don't know it. Only when you get to know it, then you can say, yes, this works or it doesn't work. So now, an important lesson on the presence of Ishvara. This is just a make-believe, the fact that you meet someone and they ask you, I don't believe in God, etc. But now let's look at it. This is the argument you can give to someone else. And if you cannot find anything else, give it to yourself. This is very important. In fact, when we go through this whole section that I'm going to talk about, we will cap it with a meditation today. Okay, so here are the portions to it. Shastra says, please see that Ishvara, God, is the one who makes you conscious. It is in fact the consciousness in you. It's not that the Ishvara's consciousness is separate from yours. It's only one consciousness. You are enjoying the consciousness which is the very nature of Ishvara. And you call it yourself. You call it your own. I am conscious. And if I am conscious, then I cannot say that there is no God. You see the point? If I am conscious, what you can say is, how do you know that this is the same consciousness everywhere? And that has its own answers, we can give that, but just at the broad levels, if you are conscious, the consciousness is provided by Ishvara. We didn't invent it. We don't even maintain it. That is the only thing in the whole creation, as we have studied in our classes, which is Svatasiddha, which is self-existing. This is an enormous thing. Means that there is no food required for consciousness. There is a food required for the mind, for the body, and for the instruments, but none for the consciousness. It is Svatasiddha, Swayam Bhavati, Swayam Bhuhu. Anyway, going back to this argument, this is just some Vedanta as part of this course. Ishvara is your own consciousness. So now you see, if you go to a doctor and if you ask, doctor, tell me if I'm conscious or not, you are like saying, doctor, tell me if there is God or not. Forget about the God, you have to convince yourself. So there is no question that Ishvara does not exist, because the nature of Ishvara, which is Brahman, is the nature of yourself, which is consciousness. Okay. Now let us look at the sequence of manifestation of this inner light, inner consciousness. Let's look at the sequence. The sequence is from pure consciousness, which is also can be called awareness or knowledge, jnanam, same thing, different words. From this pure consciousness, the first stage of manifestation is the I thought. The I thought. The moment you wake up in the morning, the first thing is me. Here I am. Then the next thing is the mind. The next stage of manifestation is some perturbation of the I thought, which is really more of an instrument. I think. What day is it today? Oh yes, today is Wednesday. Like that. So some definition of the thoughts and so on is the mind. Then the next stage of development is the inner instruments. And we will develop it a little bit more a little bit later on. Inner instruments are of course two. One is the instrument, the Antakarana, which is the sense organ, and the other one is the organ of action. But anyway, all this as an internal instrument. That's the next stage of development. Then the next stage of development is images of external bodies. How? So from the instrument, like an eye, you now have an image of the various forms that you see. And as you know very well, and perhaps you don't, and we can discuss it later, what you see is not the outside objects, but what you see is the image of the outside objects in your eye. So this is the next development, the next manifestation stage. From the instruments is what the experience of the various instruments is. We'll go into that a bit more detail. The next thing is the body. Again, we'll wait for a while until we discuss the details of that. And the last stage is my behavior as a combined manifestation of my eye sense, of my mind, of my instruments, and what I see from outside, how I respond to it, my talking, my experiences with others. This is the behavior. So now we have this sequence of manifestation from the inner light all the way up to external situation. Here, Swami Maheshananji points out, it's very beautiful. The fourth verse of Dakshinamurti Stotram, which some of us have recently just concluded, goes like this. Nana Chidra Gatodhara Sthita Mahadeepa Prabhavaswaram Jnanam Yasyatu Chakshuradi Dwara Bahispandate Janamiti Tameva Bhantam Anubhati Etat Samastam Jagat Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Shri Dakshina Murtaye. This is the verse. So what this verse is saying is, you as an individual, all of us, is like a lamp placed inside an inverted clay pot. So imagine that. If you place a lamp inside an inverted or a pot with its top completely sealed off, and the pot has various shapes of well-made holes. There may be a hole of a round hole, or a square hole, or a triangular hole, and you place this on the deepam, on the light. What you will see is that the light, and you put this in a dark room, a relatively dark room. What you will see is that the light of the lamp, which is one, is now manifest itself in a triangular light at one place, a circular light at another place, and a square light at another place. You might say this is an expression of the inner light of this clay pot, isn't it? Very similarly is our situation. What happens is that the consciousness, knowledge, awareness emanating through the eyes becomes form consciousness. Really speaking, when you are looking at a form, you're looking at a form consciousness. Even if you're looking at a table, the table may be inert, but your manifestation is table consciousness. Very much like in a dream. You may have some people walking around that are conscious that you're talking to, they're bothering you or not bothering you, they're friends, enemies, whatever it is. And then you also have some tables and chairs. Are the tables and chairs not also not your consciousness in the dream? They are. Really, everything is nothing. We just arbitrarily say this is table that doesn't have any consciousness. But I do. This is stable consciousness for me. Everything in my experience is nothing but consciousness. Anyway, going back to the example, so the same inner consciousness expresses itself as form consciousness through the eyes and sound consciousness through the ears, music, talk. So it's just like one is round, the other one is triangular. Nose, through the nose, it becomes smell consciousness. And by the way, the same thing is true for organs of action. So, through the hands, I have consciousness of grasping things. Grasping consciousness. Through my feet, I have the conscious power of walking. I have walking consciousness, and so on. So here, let us do this. Let us just spend a few minutes in absorbing this in a form of a meditation. So I would like you to do, if you can, is to just sit wherever you are, relatively erect, not slouching, but not uncomfortable either, just relaxed, and close your eyes and just follow the guided meditation. Om Namaste Astu Bhagavan Vishveshwaraya Mahadevaya Triambakaya Tripurantakaya Trikalagnikalaya Kalagnirudraya Neelakantaya Mrityunjayaya Sarveshwaraya Sadashivaya Shriman Mahadevaya Namaha. I see, when you say I see, it not means through your eyes, but through your mind. I see that I am a conscious entity. In Sanskrit we call it Chetana Vastu, Chit Swarupoham. I see that consciousness is not my quality. It's not as though I am someone that has the quality of consciousness. Instead, I am consciousness. Chit Swarupoham. My nature is Chit. The next level of manifestation of the Chit is that I am as an individual. So this in our Shastra literature is called Chittam. So from Chit you add the, so it becomes an applied Chit, a secondary Chit, a reflection. Then I think. I am here at this time. You have a mental form. This is still in the mind. Then this reflected consciousness in the individual touches the various instruments. And oversees it. I am the coordinator. I can hear the sounds. My ears have my reflected consciousness. The sense of touch throughout my body. I am aware of that. And if I were to open my eyes, you can open the eyes slightly through opening. You can see the light coming in, the form of the light, and then you can close the eyes again. So now my manifestation has traveled, so to speak, has manifested, so to speak, from Chit to an I thought, through an instrument of thinking, through the instrument of sense organs, similarly the instruments of organs of action, on through the body. So this is the process of manifestation of my inner light, Vyaktitvam. And this is truly unique. Truly unique as a species because my mind is so well developed. Unlike the animals, I am not only aware of things outside, but I am aware of my own thoughts. This is the stage, these are the stages. This is the explanation of the stages of manifestation. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. You can open your eyes and we can now resume our class. Now, having explained this process of manifestation, which we can use for our future study as we will do, this is just building blocks for explaining the rest of the text. The next topic and the rest of the second chapter, and I don't know if we can finish it today, but we'll take it up tomorrow. The rest of the second chapter, because the title of the second chapter that we are doing today is the manner of manifestation, which we are doing. So in this manner of manifestation, the next topic that Swamiji has chosen here deals with a word called samyama. I am a samyami. So this is a hard one to translate exactly. Okay? But if you look at the dictionary, if you were to go to a Sanskrit English dictionary or a Sanskrit Hindi dictionary, what samyam, which I did to look it up exactly, what it says is discipline or restraint are the two words that come up again and again. Samyama means discipline or restraint. But here I feel, from reading Swamiji's various texts and also here, there is a more nuanced translation of this word. What it means is, in the parlance that we use in the West, this person is together. You know, you often, not very often, but you sometimes hear this. What does it really mean, this person is together? It means that the person doesn't brag too much, is not overly shy, he's in peace with things, and he or she has a good idea of who he is, and leads the life in a very disciplined, together way. This is the meaning of samyama that I would like you to carry. This person is together. And we often meet people and say, wow, this person has got everything all. It may not have completely a wise wisdom or anything, but in the conduct of the life, it appears that the person doesn't have any big mistakes. He's able to contain whatever is given to that person and responds to it in a very reasonable way. This is the meaning of the word samyama. So now the question is, and this is going to be an important thing, for us to develop into a full bloom, one of the first things to do is to be aware of samyama, to become a together person. Now, to become a together person also requires a lot of application, a lot of practice, and perseverance, and so on. So now, in the next few things, I'm going to discuss Swamiji's ideas. This is really just his translation of his book. Nothing comes from me. So I'm just, if he was here teaching, this is how he would do, perhaps a much better way than I'm teaching. But anyway, I'm trying to really just replicate his teaching. So what he's saying is that there are ways to increase your samyama. It's not as though it's a mystery or anything like that. So he gives various examples. So example, the first thing he does is that if you are in the military, there is a morning drill. And the morning drill is done over and over again until it becomes the second nature of the soldiers. And in fact, he says that my students who are in the army tell me that even the officers are supposed to also be, they cannot just stand on the side and say, well, we used to do that at one time, now we don't have to do that. No. Why? Because you have to repeat it and be in touch with it on a daily basis, because you can be called upon at any one time for some very difficult assignments. So the drill is a method of being samyama, because now the army people are ready to assist in emergencies and wars and so on and so forth. In the civilian life, he has given us one very interesting example, and I'm going to add another example from the teachings of Swami Dayanandji here. So I'm going to do both of them. So the example that Swami Maheshanandji gives is sankalpa. And the example that I'm going to take from Swami Dayanandji's teaching for Vedic prayers, what doing Vedic prayers and so on, is nyasa. Either lagu nyasa or, the big nyasa, whatever, but nyasa. These are two examples of improving your samyama. Let's look at how. Let's take sankalpa first. So if you do sankalpa, for those of you that are familiar with this, as you know, before we do a proper action, some prayer, we can do something very simple like we do. Mama upatta samasta durita kshayadvara Shri Parameshwara Pritiyartham aham idam pujam karishye. This is a simple sankalpa. But if you go to a public puja and the priest has an elaborate set of sankalpa, it has 4 portions of the sankalpa. First one is kala, means appropriate time. So he will say, in Sanskrit, and such time at relative to the beginning of this whole creation. This is when I'm doing it. The second one is desha, which is where am I, is the second one. The third one is gotra. So gotra means my whole lineage. We'll go discuss that in a minute. And the fourth one is called viniyoga. Viniyoga means what is the purpose of my prayer. These are the 4 things. So Swamiji says that this applies in our life at all times, not just in doing prayers, Vedic prayers and so on. Because that is done by a priest, you don't have to worry about it. But in your life, whatever actions you perform, whatever decisions you make about this is what I'm going to do, must take into account, preferably should take into account these 4 factors. One is appropriateness of time. He gives an example that suppose you have an open air meeting to attend in New Delhi in June. It is inappropriate for you to wear pants and jackets and a tie because it is too hot. No matter what the protocol is, you wear some Indian clothes that are loose, that are white, nicely dressed. And so to bring in a Western clothing which is appropriate for the winter time into the middle of June in New Delhi is inappropriate. So the kala and desha are both very important. Then the third one is called gotra. Gotra means a memory of where you are coming from. Which parents are you? Like, for example, he says that when you start something, think about what your parents would have thought about it. This is gotra. Certainly you can invoke a certain rishi. And so similarly, for example, if you are a Rotarian, Lions Club member, or an alumni of Harvard, how would they expect you to behave? So this is what is called gotra. So be aware of what the expectations are. Are you behaving with respect to what people expect you to do in that sense? Yes. And of course the Viniyoga means what you are trying to do, you should be very clear about it and not ask for something which is beyond the capabilities of what you can get. And so you can just say that for Antakarana Shuddhi means just the purity of my heart, purity of my mind. Fine. But if you say that I want to become a billionaire in the next 2-3 years, that may not be the right, nobody, Ishvara, even Ishvara cannot give you this. Okay. So Viniyoga is also important. So what he's saying is that a right sankalpa, where all factors that affect your situation in life contribute towards samyama, to their being together. Now let me go to the nyasa. So nyasa is very similar to this. Here Swami Maheshananji didn't point that out, but I think from my studies from Swami Dayanandji and others, the discussion of nyasa is very similar. So nyasa means your conduct of life where you bring in the various devatas and tell them, I recognize your contribution towards my development. You're not oblivious of it. Like a child, it doesn't really know who's caring for him or her. But as you grow older, you have to thank people who are supporting you, where the money is coming from, where the family is. You have to do that. A child that is 15 years old and never thanks the parents for anything or the teacher for anything, there's something wrong with that. And so the nyasa means an ability to call out the various devatas and also understand their contribution towards your own life. I really like the explanation that Swami Tattvavidananda Swami TV had given to us. I remember there was a satsang in Sailorsburg and somebody asked this question and he said, Swamiji, what is nyasa? I don't understand what nyasa is. Swamiji's answer was wonderful. He says, in your office or at home either, pretty soon you have a mess of where my books are, where my notes are. And they're all over the place because you are so busy. There's no way to live. And if you go to a library, a public library, and you cannot find a book, it's not a library. So in a library, you have to have sections where you say this is where historical books are, this is where geographical books are, this is where computer books are. Then you can hunt through and can find it. So nyasa means leading an orderly, disciplined life with the recognition of the various devatas. So for example, in the Lagu Nyasa, as you know, many of you know this, Prajanane Brahma Tishtatu, Padayor Vishnus Tishtatu, Hastayor Haras Tishtatu, Bhavo Indras Tishtatu, Jathare Agnis Tishtatu, Hridaye Shivas Tishtatu, Kanthe Vasavas Tishtantu, Vaktre Saraswati Tishtatu, Nasikayor Vayurs Tishtatu, Nayanayos Chandradityau Tishthetam, etc. It means, may these various devatas assist me by sitting near me and making my life more structured. This is the nyasa. And so the conclusion of this topic, as Swamiji says, in developing samyama, togetherness, is that you lead a life thoughtfully, pre-planned like the above, and if you do, your samyama will increase very well. This is the topic of the manifestation of Vyaktitvam. You know what, I think I can, if you allow me to spend a couple of more minutes, then I might as well finish this chapter. I think I may go over by a couple of minutes, few minutes. So there is a new topic here, which has to do with when do we give up this life? We all want to be this disciplined and orderly and all of that, but we don't. Why? And Swamiji says it is because we give too much importance to outside factors. instead of believing in ourselves, our ability to conduct a life based on good principles, we are too casual, we are too careless, and we adopt things from others and in fact tend to copy it. And here Swamiji points out, here's in copying, just look at the contrast between a human being and a machine. What is the difference between them? So Swamiji says a human being is the one that can make a mistake. Machine does not, if you design it properly. A human being is the one who is not consistent. The machine is consistent. Like, for example, we tell people lying is the worst thing that one can do. It is to be avoided. And the very next moment we lie through our teeth. It's completely inconsistent. A machine will not do that. And so, what Swamiji says, that of course we are not isolated. We do not live in a deserted island by ourselves. We have to have outside influences. How can we not? So, what is the best way? And I think I can just finish it. This is almost over. The way to improve my samyama, my togetherness, my holding myself in a very positive way, is to filter the various influences through the fourfold sankalpa or nyasa, and to make sure that I conduct my life in a structured manner based on the recommended restraint and independent manifestation. These are big words and we will probably repeat them in the next class. But really speaking, the process that we should follow is that we keep a certain appreciation for who I am, my values, and hopefully my teachings help me with that. But once I do, then I don't give up the moorings of where I am. I don't. Here, one example Swamiji had given is, do not be a vessel that is rolling around. Like, for example, supposing you have a metal lota, metal vessel of some kind, which is totally round, and you cannot keep it at one place. It is just rolling around. Better is to have a solid, flat surface at the bottom of the vessel where you can place it, and yes, you can move it if you want to, but not at the mercy of the slightest change. This is the way to gain samyama and the way to manage the expression of the Atma through the various things. So this is the way to gaining independence also, because the main topic really here is to go from dependence to independence. What is the best way to do so? It's not going to happen overnight, as we discussed it yesterday. And so this topic will be further taken up tomorrow, and we will develop it further. So with that, I close the class with a small prayer, and then I will switch on my laptop to see if you have any questions and try to answer them. Thank you. Om Asato Ma Satgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityor Ma Amritam Gamaya. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Okay, let me see. question from Jugal Kishore. How do we buy this book? I don't think I have any extra copies, Jugal. I think just like, and in fact, you were the one that might have ordered these books for everybody. And so we'd have to go to Varanasi or to Chowkhamba in New Delhi and get this book. If you can all send me an email if you are interested in getting the book, then we can consolidate that into a single order and order it. Lot of wishes to Pami. Nobody has given me any questions. This is all about my wife, which is nice. No other questions. I must be doing a fabulous job. Now, anyway, please think, and I think as the course progresses, I'm sure that you will have some doubts that you wanted to clear, and I'll be happy to do so. So until tomorrow at 8 o'clock, goodbye. Thank you.